we've talked a little bit about 5+11, 4-4-2-2-1-1 hike, all of the back and forth of the last couple months, but I thought that would be a good launching point for us to finally dig in on Tom's perfect plan. So, Tom, why don't you lay the table here?
Oh, hold on. I had to do a Google image search based on something Danny asked in the private chat. So you want me to just go into my playoff here?
Well, yeah, just like how did you start? Where did you want to start? What kind of playoff do you want to create?
I don't want to create a playoff at all, Chip.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out a way because there's so much going back and forth, and there was the idea originally of the 4 auto bids, and then there was, the other conferences that weren't really going to want it. And then the SEC changed its mind and went to the 5+11. And we all know why the SEC is suddenly on board with a 5+11, because they looked at the history and said, wait, why are we only giving ourselves 4 auto bids? We can get 6 damn teams in, because if you did the 5+11 model last year, guess what? The SEC would have had 6 teams in. The Big 12 would have had 1 still. Why Brett Yormark is so into this model, I'm not entirely sure. But my model is kind of a compromise, and there's a lot of parts to it I don't like myself. It's just I was trying to figure out something that would work and something that would improve all aspects of college football, in that not just the postseason, but it would also improve the regular season. Or improve might be the wrong word, but maintain some things. So essentially what I came to at the end, and we've discussed it a little bit here, it's a 16-team field in which the Big Ten and the SEC get 3 automatic berths.
Okay. So we're already in automatic berth territory. So Big gets 3. Okay.
SEC
I'm good with that, by the way.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
And the thing is, those automatic berths would be based on your conference record in the regular season. So every conference
overall
game
record at all.
No, conference record. If you're 10-2 overall, but you're 9-3 overall, but you went 8-0 in the SEC, guess what? You're in. But you'll be playing 9 games now, by the way, because all the Power 4 conferences will be playing 9 games conference schedules, because those conference records now are what determine you get in, and it helps make sure that you play more teams, which will keep the schedule more balanced. But to people who will respond that that's crap and that's unfair, that those conferences get auto bids, don't disagree at all from a competitive standpoint. But the truth is, if you look at the conferences as they're currently constructed, and you go through the entire history of the college football playoff and further back, every single year, the Big Ten and the SEC have had at least 3 teams in the top 16. It's just the way it works. So that's really not anything different. The big change to me is you cap conferences at 4 teams. So the Big Ten and the SEC can only get 4, which means now if you take it, another one, I'm sorry, I skipped this. It's 6 automatic bids for conference champs. So the Power 4 plus the top 2 G5. So now you've got the 6 auto bids for the Big Ten and the SEC, but 2 of those are conference champs. So you add 4 more conference champs. So now we're at 10 teams. That leaves 6 at-large berths for Notre Dame, the ACC, the Big 12, or possibly another G5 team if one of them has a good enough season. And the purpose of this is, A, it gets everybody involved. So that way it's still a national sport. There is still national interest across all parts of the country, because everybody can sit there and say, we've got a chance to get in. And B, it leads to better games, because Oregon doesn't have to play Ohio State after a bye. Oregon will be playing Boise State or Memphis, whoever, the G5 team that gets in. And then in the second round, they might play another team that's like that. So if you looked at last year using the same formula, the first round would have been number 1 Oregon versus number 16 Army. And then in the second round, they would have played the winner of Indiana, Boise State. Now, if you're Oregon, would you rather have Army and then Indiana or Boise State or Ohio State for your first playoff game?
Yeah.
So it leads to better matchups down the line, which leads to a better product. So you've added more playoff games, and you're adding much better games to the late rounds when people are really going to be tuning in. And then the other one, going back, if you guys got questions, you want to just interrupt me so I'm not talking for 20 minutes straight, go for it.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah. So are you concerned, because the conference record determines these automatic bids, but you're still going to be playing a conference championship game?
No, you're not. No, you're not, Chip. Conference championship games are gone.
Whoa.
That's a big omission that you left out there.
I haven't gotten there. I haven't really gotten to the schedule yet. But that's a good question. I'm happy you asked it because
Yeah,
they're gone.
because it's your conference. I was going to say, like, would you be disincentivized? Like, is there any punishment for conference championship games? So this is like almost. Oh, this is old school because we are really only talking about your league record.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have ties, it's up to the league to determine who ends up winning the tiebreakers.
Yeah. The league, it's up to each individual league. They will set the parameters. Everybody will know what they are going in, period. But the purpose of getting rid of conference championships is kind of partially what you just mentioned, where there's 3 teams. You don't want to punish anyone for being in the conference championship, but also because we're starting the playoffs sooner. The season will be ending on January 1st. It won't be going into late January when the NFL playoffs are still raging on. That doesn't mean bowl games can't continue going on. Non-playoff bowls can go play whenever the hell they want. I don't care. But the playoff will be ending on New Year's. It will be New Year's Day. It will be a national holiday. We will watch it every single damn year. And then, but other parts of the schedule that I'd love to hear what you guys think. And I'll explain my reasoning for it is I've mentioned everybody's going to 9 games, but to be playoff eligible as a Power 4 member, you have to play 10 games a year against Power 4 competition. So you've got your 9 conference games and you have to schedule 1 non-conference game against another P4 league. You will also schedule 1 non-conference game against a G5 league. And you will also schedule 1 against an FCS school, because those schools still need that money to help fund their departments, especially in this modern era where things are only going to get more expensive for them. And also because you're playing a lot of really difficult games. So just give yourself a bye. I think these teams will deserve it during the middle of the season. And you're getting 2 additional buys plus your FCS game. So that will help keep players healthy for a
We're keeping
season.
the buys?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Because the season's starting earlier too, bud.
I was thinking let's kill the buys, by the way. Not to change your plan, but like if you have 105-man rosters, you don't need a buy. You have enough depth.
To put the toll on the starters. That'll never pass.
I know, but like
travel too with these coast to coast leagues. When you're sending Rutgers to UCLA, it'd be really nice to be able to throw an off week on either the front end or the back end of that.
So you'd play those 3 non-conference games, and I think part of this is, or part of the more interesting aspects of this is, if your playoff, the automatic berths in the AC or in the Big Ten and the SEC are based on nothing but conference record, it kind of leads to a free roll in non-conference. You can schedule a huge team. And if you lose, it's not going to harm your ability to reach the college football playoff because you can still win your auto bid. But if you win and you don't finish in the top 3, it's like added insurance, because that's going to look really good on your resume if you're one of the teams fighting for that at-large bid. And that applies both to the ACC and the Big 12 and all the G5, because if you're a G5 school and a Power 4 league is forced to play you and you beat them, that's a huge boost to your resume and your ability to get into the college football playoff if you aren't one of the conference champions. So that's where that comes in. Thoughts?
Let me get the numbers correct again. So was it 3-3-2-2?
It's 3 the SEC, 3 the Big Ten, and then there's 6 conference champs, one of which will be the SEC and the Big Ten. So there's 4 conference champions outside those 2, plus the 6 in those 2. So that's 10 automatic berths pretty much every year, leaving 6 at-larges.
So the ACC and the Big 12 are just relegated.
One.
They are basically relegated to American Athletic Conference Pac-12 status.
Yeah. But they're going to get 2 teams in, unless you think that the American and the Mountain West are going to have better teams than the ACC and the Big 12 do. Like last year, let's see, last year the ACC would have had Clemson, Miami, and SMU in.
Yeah,
that's 3
I think
teams.
that's fair. Yeah.
Big 12 still only had 1. The Big 10 still only had 4. Yeah. So it's I think for the ACC in particular, this is a pretty good deal, especially now with the way you're doing the revenue sharing, where you're going to be doing it based off of television ratings. I think it works out pretty well for the ACC. And I also think the Big 12 most years will get 2 teams in. Now there's also the Notre Dame equation of this, and Notre Dame does not have to join a conference, but it is not getting special treatment either. We're not going to bend over backwards for them. They have to play by the same rules as everybody else. They have to play 10 Power 4 opponents every year if they want to be eligible. If they don't, then they just aren't eligible that year. And that might seem like a lot, but Notre Dame is playing 10 Power 4 conference opponents this year. It's really nothing out of the ordinary for them. It's just going to keep things going. And it also incentivizes them to keep their rivalries with some certain schools going. Whether they want to keep their ACC deal or not, Chip, you guys, that's up to them. It's up to the ACC.
I mean, if you're Notre Dame, the answer is absolutely, because you get
Yeah.
power conference credit
Mm-hmm.
for playing the bottom tier. You're guaranteed out of those 5 games to get at least a couple against teams that are at the bottom tier of the power conferences.
Yeah. And the next major change, we're starting the season earlier. We start on Labor Day weekend now because the television networks love having that long Labor Day weekend before the NFL season begins. They love starting on Thursday and then getting to go a game on Sunday and Monday as well. But we're going to be starting the season. If we were using this year, instead of August 23rd, which is when the first games of the year will be played, like week 0, we're starting it on August 14th.
Woo!
I think that's a non-starter for me. Like, I don't want to go to games. Like, I wouldn't go to a game in Tallahassee to open the year unless it's against like literally like Bama, Georgia, Ohio State level. Just not like even if you're playing at night, like the tailgating experience in that kind of weather sucks, to be honest. Also, like the students aren't on campus then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here's my counter.
Okay.
Are you telling me that the temperature on August 13th in Tallahassee is noticeably different than the temperature on August 23rd?
I'm telling you the difference in August 23rd is noticeably different than September 23rd, which is when your like 3rd and 4th games will be occurring in this scenario compared to the original, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it gives you more of this schedule in weather that you really don't want to be in. I think that would be my issue. Also, like this turn, and I think you want pushback on this, I assume. This turns every school into how Northwestern is, where you're playing a couple games to start the year where there's no students on campus. That kind of sucks.
Don't disagree.
I would eliminate buys. Like if you got a crazy East Coast trip in your West Coast school, make your bye game, your FCS game, your recovery week.
So is there no room? There's no room to start on week 0 to start August 23rd, and even without the conference championship games, there's not enough.
We would have to remove buys or shorten the regular season to get to what I ultimately want. Because in the one that I not want, but what I created in this model, the way things work, if we start week 0 in that earlier date, the regular season would end the week before Thanksgiving. So then the players get Thanksgiving off. Everybody gets to go home, go be with your families, do whatever the hell you want.
Full off week.
Yeah, it's an off week because let's be real, the NFL dominates that weekend anyway.
That's true, and they're only going to keep doing it as they continue to take over. Like, do we have a Thanksgiving weekend Saturday game coming soon? I know they've moved.
Don't we already?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
Because
I'm pretty sure they already are.
Obviously, they have Thursday. Aren't they moving to a Friday game now?
They've had Friday games the last 2 years. Yeah, they've got Black Friday games on Amazon. So they're already taking that over. So we would take that week off, and then the playoff would begin the following Friday night with 2 games. So Friday, December 5th, you've got the first 2 games. Then the other 6 games are all played that Saturday. The second round is the next week, and so on and so forth. So then the championship game would be played on December 27th. And also, so it's 2 days after Christmas. Everybody's home. Nobody's doing anything. Everybody's just watching it. And then, what was the other part of this?
And then the final would be on the 1st?
No. The title game's on the 27th. Sorry. Like the first would still be all the other bowl games. Like the Rose Bowl, if they don't want to be part of this, they could still play on New Year's Day. Those games would still all exist. But the other aspect that I didn't mention yet is the first 2 rounds will be on campus. And then the final 2 rounds will be at neutral sites. Whereas the semifinals, my idea would be you go back to your original 4 BCS bowls or whatever you want. Fiesta, Sugar, Rose, and
Peach.
No. The original ones. The Rose. Oh.
Orange.
Why? There we go. Sorry.
Yeah, come on, boys. Let's go.
Rose, orange. So
and it would, Orange Bowl. Okay.
It would rotate between those 4 every year, 2 each. They each get a semifinal, and the other 2 can host the regular game. If you don't want in, like you're the Rose Bowl, and you don't want to get rid of, New Year's Day, then you just don't get in, and then we go to the Cotton or the Peach, whoever wants it. And then the championship game would be auctioned off the same way the Super Bowl is. Neutral sites all across the country bid on a title game. You get to host it. There are so many indoor stadiums now that you can really play it anywhere you want across the country to keep it national. The title game might be in Minnesota. Like a Super Bowl was in Minnesota. Chicago's going to have a roof stadium soon. It could be in Chicago. All these places would be eligible options to just move it around and kind of just generate buzz all across the country. And also, you'd get money because you'd be auctioning it off.
This is my my own personal response, just as a college football fan. I am in on the way that you have constructed your bracket, the way that the teams are selected, the way that the teams could be put in. I'm totally on board. I'm also in on starting maybe a week earlier. Actually making week 0 the true week 1. I'm kind of out on Thanksgiving. Losing that as rivalry weekend. I think that there's something that reaches, like, as we continue to lose, what do the kids say? As we continue to lose recipes, like as we continue to lose our history of college football and our connection to it, there's something about everyone's home. And for not everyone, but for a lot of people, you went to school somewhere near your home, and going back, because you're going to be home and going to the rivalry game, last game of the season, there is a familial atmosphere to some of those rivalry games Thanksgiving weekend that I think plays well into the holiday. I would not want to give that up personally, but that's just me as a college football fan.
I don't disagree with any of that, but another part of my plan was I was trying to.
We got to break some eggs. I mean, you're trying to make an omelet out here.
I'm trying to come up with something the television networks are going to want too.
Yeah,
because they don't like to generate as much money as possible out of these things, which is the goal for the networks, for the conferences, for everybody, because it is just a television event. You can't be going up against the NFL. You're not going to win that battle. So you have to try to limit all your cross, as much as possible, I think, to generate the most amount of income for this thing.
When you've got the Thanksgiving table and, like half the table went to one school and half the table went to another, and you're just chopping it up, getting ready for the big game that weekend.
You could still argue over the playoff though. Everybody, you're still going to be talking college football. The bracket will be out.
See, this is where my bias comes in. Ain't no way one of my family members went to a school that's going to the playoff. Okay. We're out here talking about who's going to keep the other team out of the postseason. Okay. I'm 6-5. You're 5-6. That is a blood feud right there.
Yeah. But what you and your cousin can still do? You know what you can still do? You could still bitch and moan about the fact that Alabama got in over some other ACC team.
Okay. That's fine.
Yeah.
Any other responses here? Any other thoughts from the crew?
Go ahead, bud. I would tweak the scheduling to where we've been so locked into forcing the SEC to play 9 games. It's interesting because the ACC never comes up, even though they've only played 8, but I'm all for them going to 9. But what about if we all went to 8 and you had 3 non-conference games versus the other 3 Power 4?
Yeah.
How come no one ever talks about that? Like, it's always like, let's force them to go to 9. Well, if we had the opportunity to play more non-conference games, and like, that's where I think it would be a mandate. You'd have to play. I love the idea of mandating to be eligible for the playoffs. You have to play 10 Power 4 teams. Then as part of that, you have to play one from every other. Then you talk about getting a more input to put in our, spreadsheets and to figure out how these teams stack up against each other when we're trying to pick them. If you have more info based on play against other conferences, I think that'd be the one tweak I would make, is go down to 8 conference games, 3 non-cons against each of the other Power 4. And I appreciate what you say about the FCS, and I've always been a proponent of the FCS. I'd say keep the buys and get rid of the FCS altogether and just donate the money. Like, just give the money to them, because you'll make that much more from the gate, from having sellouts that are over the top, from TV money, from getting better matchups throughout the season.
The problems with that, because I did consider it, problems with that are the Big 12 has 16 teams, the SEC has 16 teams, the ACC has 17 teams, and the Big 10 has 18. So you can't all schedule one from each conference, because then somebody's going to be getting screwed.
Right.
Like, they're not going to be able to meet the eligibility requirements. So if we wanted, I guess we could do it when we go to, you have to play 9. But and also then who's the G5 playing in non-conference? They don't get a shot to actually boost their.
See, now if we're blowing this thing up, I'd probably have the G5 do their own playoff.
But see, this is sidetracking. Everybody arguing for the 5 and 11. I think that's what's going to happen in the long term over a 5 and 11. You're just going to see 2 super leagues form. Everybody's going to just kind of pile into 2 leagues.
I love the 8 idea. Honestly, like I think that's great. I don't like the SEC schedules are already harder than the Big 10 schedules playing 8. Like that's I don't think I need to see 9 games for that. I want more connectivity, and that way I think if you play more non-conference games against one another, you have less chance that you have a Bama Florida State situation, right? It's like, yeah, you know what, this conference proved that it actually was better. Whereas that year, like the SEC wasn't great. They're still really good, but it didn't actually prove it in that given year, you know, that it was actually all that special. They laid a bunch of eggs in the non-conference. If you have more opportunities to do that, you can either show you're going to stomp those teams, or you lay some more eggs. So I love the 8 idea. Tom, who do you think the most pushback would come from? And is it like who are the top 3 haters of this idea? Is it conferences, TV networks? What do you think?
I think the TV networks would love it. I think
ACC
that
and Big 12 would push back.
I think
the ACC knows it's dead, right? I mean, did you see like the details of the settlement stuff actually came out?
Yeah.
That's a short-term agreement, guys.
Yeah. 2031 and maybe sooner, but I think 2031 is the year we're going to see another massive shift.
Yeah. I mean, like Cal and Stanford, SMU aren't even eligible for the TV rating stuff. This is just like, hey, you know.
But
I think there's parts that everybody would hate. I think the SEC and the Big 10 would hate being capped at 4, and I think the ACC and the Big 12 would hate not getting auto bids.
Right.
But that's part of the compromise. But going back to the scheduling, I wouldn't mind going back to 8 games. I'd compromise on that happily. The reason I went to 9 was just because I do feel like tradition-wise, these conferences are so huge. If you're only playing 8 games, you're going to be going a long time without seeing teams that are in your own conference.
That's right.
But I think the Big 10 does this right, where some teams have a certain number of protected rivalries and other teams don't. And that's okay. Like they stopped trying to force the Penn State, Michigan State rivalry because it wasn't
Rest
there.
in peace.
Right, exactly. Whereas the SEC, I've always seen this, like all the projected models that have been leaked out of the SEC office or come up with folks, they're like, oh, we each need to have 3. I'm like, that's not true.
Yeah.
Okay? Like some SEC teams should have 0 or 1. Some might have 4. And if you do it that way, I think it actually does even out a lot more. Like Auburn's gonna be a little bit tougher if they want to keep, you know, everybody they play, but all right, still got time for golf, so it can't be that tough, right? Whatever.
All right. Well, this is this again. The story's been written. It's gotten a lot of good reaction. We had
just 2 minor things to add to it. Yeah. Still, the selection process will still feature a selection committee. But going to go back to some BCS roots here too. We'll also include computer polls and the AP poll.
I definitely think that from a modeling standpoint, 9 games makes that a lot worse because of the lack of connectivity between leagues. You need more, if you want this data to be better, you need more games between leagues. Otherwise, the way you do it, and this would make it a lot more accurate, and accurate models use this, but it pisses people off, is you would have to put a heavy emphasis on recruiting rankings. And that people go nuts about that. I understand why, but like if you're not going to have the connectivity between the leagues because you have a lack of non-conference games between them, then the most next predictive thing is how well your players were rated as high school recruits. Not really transfer recruits. I don't think that translates, but that's for another day.
The one final part is that the broadcast rights will be sold to multiple streaming or multiple outlets. It's not in one, people can't own it. They will sell them individually by rounds. And then also you get to the championship game, it'll be just like the Super Bowl. So if CBS, ESPN, and NBC or anybody else all have like parts of the playoff, they will rotate the title game every other year.
Love that.
Because that way it keeps one it keeps one company from having way too much influence in how things go. And it just keeps, again, it keeps everybody far more involved in what everybody else is doing. Everybody has a reason to kind of work together.
No, I really like that. I'm worried that's the least likely, but I really like it. I would love to see that be able to play out.
I think it'll be, if the way that this goes, I think it will be so expensive because I think it will generate so much additional revenue that one company won't be able to afford to buy it. In fact, if you look at things right now,
They
ESPN is already
TNT.
sub-licensing a bunch of these games to TNT because they way overbid for it to keep control of it.
You can check out the story on CBSSports.com. We appreciate Tom sharing his master plan with us.